Hello and welcome to another episode of WNBA Courtside. This is Cyrus. I am here with the full crew. We are all here today. It's good to have you, Lee. We've missed you. You're the Brody this week. Nthabiseng, good as always. And Kaunda, you're keeping it as real as you can. How's everybody doing?
All good. What's happening?
I'm pleased that everyone, had an interest in keeping their lives because no one chatted nonsense about Diana Taurasi last week. So that's
we generally don't chat any nonsense about Taurasi. All we'll say is, look, age hasn't been great to a lot of people, but she's managed to do really well despite her advanced years on this planet Earth. But this show isn't about Diana Taurasi. This show is about the teams that are battling. No, I guess in Lee's world,
rename it the Diana Taurasi show.
Yeah. But we're going to be talking about the playoff teams who are really battling for the 7th and 8th seed. And it really is like a battle royale to see who will actually make it into those last two spots in the playoffs. You've got the Wings, Liberty, Mystics, and Sparks. Currently, as we're recording this, being in that order in the spots. And it's going to be a really tough one. I'm going to start with you, Kaunda, and perhaps we'll get the pain out of the way first. The LA Sparks, I don't understand what is happening with your team, or rather, maybe I should say, we all understand what is happening with your team, but please talk us through it. I mean, the record's been bad.
In the eternal words of Bernie Mac, y'all don't understand. Y'all don't understand. No, look. At the Sparks, we've got a lot of problems. I think we've got a coaching issue, we got a chemistry issue, and we've got a finishing issue. So we got lots of issues. I don't think, personally, I trust Derek Fisher as a coach, his rotations and his decision making. I don't really trust that personally. Then the team composition, obviously we had to play part of the season without the Ogumike sisters, and now we're playing without Chine at the moment while we're recording this. And look, they've got a nice squad. I think it can do great things. They're missing one superstar piece, which they would have had if they managed not to hold on to Candice Parker. And now that she's gone, you can see that gap there. She's not there. And then if you look at like the fact that Christy Tolliver is also not playing, we're missing some veteran experience there in the backcourt. I mean, there's only so much a youngster like Tia Cooper can do. Erica Wheeler is fantastic. She's balling, but we've got potential there. We got potential.
Wait a minute, are you guys relying on Tia Cooper to do some stuff for you guys?
No, I'm saying we have to use her because we don't have Christy Tolliver. You don't have
if you're relying on Tia Cooper to do some stuff for you guys, y'all are in for a very long run.
No, I'm saying we don't have other options. That's what I'm talking about. If we had Christy Tolliver available, Tia Cooper wouldn't be getting the minutes she's getting if we had Christy Tolliver as an option. So we use who we have. We use who we have, and like I'm saying, I don't think we're gonna go far, especially with the matchups that we got remaining.
Well,
I think it's participation trophy time, if you will. But yeah.
But here's the schedule, Kaunda, and I mean, to your point, the Sparks are already struggling. Now they've got to play the Connecticut Sun, the Seattle Storm, and then one of the other contenders for that spot, the playoff spot in the Dallas Wings. So it's not really looking good for the Sparks at the moment. And Nthabi, do you think that the Sparks might have something that they could maybe try and find within that team, or do you think this is just it? Like they're not going to make the playoffs?
Let's see who they get in the draft, because right now we can just call it a secret for them. Honestly.
Okay, I mean,
I'm not trying to throw any shade, but that's the reality of it.
You might not be trying, but you're certainly landing. Lethabo, do you agree with this about the Sparks? Do you think this is it? Like their season's basically done?
1, 2, 3, Cancun!
Look, I take no joy in saying this stuff because, there are players on that team that we really admire and like, but I do think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get the Sparks back to where they should be in a lot of people's eyes. And right now, there's a lot that needs to be done to retool that roster, make sure that they're playing at the level they need to, and potentially it is a coaching issue, but it's also an interesting thing when you look at what's happened with Derek Fisher, because he's not just the coach, they also gave him a bit of a promotion there. So he's also running the basketball ops stuff, and that says a lot about how ownership really value him. And this could be a very, very long ride for some Sparks fans. I think if we're going to go in ascending order again, let's take a look then at the Mystics, because they're the ones who are just outside the playoff places. And I'm going to start with you, Lethabo, because I think the Washington Mystics are de facto one of your favorites in the WNBA. What are your thoughts? I mean, because when you look at where they are, there are a couple of games outside of, 7th spot. They're tied in terms of games with, I believe it's the Liberty. My bad. In terms of getting into that 8th seed. So do you think that the Mystics could potentially make a run and get themselves into a playoff spot?
It depends on the health of Tina Charles and Elena Del Don. I know, they've been very cautious with EDD because obviously she's just come back from a injury that had her out for 2 years, a year?
Yeah, 2 years.
So when you put that, and then you consider that Tina Charles also had a sprain, I'm sure they might be precautious with her. And I believe in that team. I've always sing the praises of Maisha and Allen, Ariel Atkins. So I think they could. I just wonder about the use of it. Because I'm okay, you get to the playoffs, and then what? Do what exactly? Because what?
Yeah.
Yes, it gets, some mileage under EDD's legs, but I mean, you're not really going to be competitive. Maybe in the elimination round, you could be. Because, I mean, you saw that Elena was kind of looking like herself. I think in the first game back, she scored 18 points, something like that.
Yeah.
And in the next game, she scored 17 points. So you can tell, she's not really missing a step per se. But I'm just you're going to go back. You're going to come in, to squads that are way more healthier than you, way more in terms of chemistry, more fine-tuned. And we know how more intense it gets in the playoffs while you guys are still figuring out how to play with EDT now that she's in. I just don't know what the purpose of it is. Participation.
It's the playoffs. You don't want to miss out on that. And I mean, if we're looking at the standings here, and I think this is also the other thing, the Mystics by far have got a longer schedule going towards those playoff places. They're playing this Saturday. They take on the Minnesota Lynx, and that's a really tough game for them, especially if they're going to be missing, the two players you'd hope might push them across the line in terms of Tina Charles and Elena Del Don. But then the Seattle Storm after that, the Atlanta Dream that should be able to beat the Chicago Sky on their day can beat just about anybody. And then you've got those matchups against the Liberty and the Lynx to sort of round off their season, and you think, okay, is this really what you want as a team? Kaunda, I mean, let's look at those last couple of games, and especially that last one against the Lynx. At that point, it could all be over for the Mystics. So do you think they need to try and put everything they have into making the playoffs? So much like what Lee said, hey, leave it to the people who have things that they want to do.
Look, I think I mentioned something similar in our previous podcast. Look, you don't come into the league and give up halfway just because things are looking bad.
Yeah.
Look, even the Atlanta Dream at one point must have dreamed of potentially making it into the postseason.
Yeah.
Look, they're not there to hang out. It's not a hotel lobby.
True.
You're not waiting for the after party, and
you're there for the show.
You're there for the show. So believe you me, the Washington Mystics fancy themselves, making it further than the first round, especially with that elimination game. Cyrus, remember back in the days when, it's not really back in the days, it's a number of seasons ago, when the Lynx were the team to beat and the Washington Mystics were the team to beat at the time, and I think both of them got eliminated in the first round. And that changed everything about the way people perceive that first round.
Yeah, but there's a difference between that and when you have two players now that are injury prone. Would you rather just keep her health and then have a strong campaign next season, or really risk the injury of EDD going through another injury or worsening her injury or whatever the case, and then she has to take longer to recuperate? I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, I'd love to see them there just because negativity and chaos.
But Lee, to your point though, if you've got a Ferrari at home and you're driving with a spare tire, sometimes you're going to go out in that spare tire and just push it to the limit to see how fast you can go, and maybe that's
the
what
spare tire that's slightly deflated.
In the words of sorry, Nthabiseng, please go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, let's not forget how much Tina Charles has been carrying the team. So to Lee's point, do you want to risk a potential further injury with her carrying the whole team while Elena is trying to figure herself out there? We spoke about this last week as well, saying, push for whatever you can get, but not to the point where you want to re-injure somebody or cause further damage to somebody who's really carried you throughout the season. Make a good run for it, but then call it a season, or do what you can do to get to the position that you need to get to, give the competition that you need to give, but don't risk a potential championship season next year when people are 100.
Not a bad point. Kaunda, you were going to say?
No, I was just going to say, a young man named Kawhi Leonard taught us about load management. And I think that's something that can be applied here. You don't have to get all your best players and push them to the limit and make them, get injured. You remember what happened to one Kevin Durant when he came back, and they utilized him a little too early, and they just aggravated that injury and it became worse. But you can also load manage those guys because you just don't want to give up. This is the time where you can give other people added minutes and just say, push it and see where we can go with it. Yeah. I know a championship is far from their reach, but still, it doesn't mean that you just give it all up. And I understand what you're saying. If you injure an EDD at the stage where she is, you're just messing up next season.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think load management can be applied here, even with Tina Charles, because obviously, like Tony saying, Lee said, she's been carrying
the load.
So I don't want to use that I word because
No, and we'll touch all of the wood. I do think though that really then brings us to the point of, okay, fine. If we're not necessarily pushing, then we look at the schedule like this for New York, and they say, okay, we're in the 8th seed. We've got a young team to be here is incredible. Let's push to see what we can do. The teams we have to play are the Dallas Wings, who are, direct competitors for, that 7th spot, and then the Sun and the Mystics. So they could almost say, well, when we look at it, if there's no fight in the dog, maybe it's fine for us. And Lee, do you think that the Liberty then sort of have a run at it where they're like, okay, fine. If we look at the Mystics, they don't want to risk Tina Charles. They want to risk Elena Delle Donne. This is our spot to just keep a hold of.
Yeah, they have more reason to actually go because they're young. This is they're not winning nobody's championship this week. Let's be clear about that. Sorry.
Always.
I'm sorry. I'm foul. I need my mouthwash. They're not winning anybody's championship this year. But this is great. This is like the OKC run where you're a bunch of young kids and you get that experience underneath your legs so that by the time, say, the next 2-3 years maybe, you're like, hey, we've been here before. We know how intense it is. And then you become I use this analogy a lot in football, but sometimes we're like football players. They're not playing the game. They're playing against the moment. And sometimes the moment beats them. So if they get into the playoffs now, they're playing the moment with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Yeah. So that the next time that they're in the playoffs and they're actually a strong contender, they won't be playing the moment anymore. They'll be playing the game. And then, the possibilities are endless on that regard. So they have everything. They have everything to gain, nothing to lose, because no one came in this season with extremely high expectations for the New York Liberty. I think if they clinch a playoff spot, it's better than what some would have. It's better. In fact, the way they've been performing is, especially when you look at Nisha Laney, they've exceeded expectations in terms of how they look now. And even with Sam Whitcomb and the addition of Natasha Howard and so on and so forth, they look like a much more better team. So they have nothing to lose, everything to gain. Go get that playoff spot, get that experience, get your heart broken, cry all you want in front of the TV with your mama holding you, so that next season or next season afterwards, you're like, hey, yes, you have a target. You have a target now that you're aspiring for, and you're like, and you're going all in. And then we might have a 2022, 2023 New York Liberty champion. So,
yeah, look, I like that point. I like that point. And obviously, they've also got potential Rookie of the Year, Michaela Onyenwere, on the side as well, who, will also gain a lot of experience. And Nthabiseng, just to finish off on the Liberty, do you think that, this is also a chance for the likes of Sabrina Ionescu, who are supposed to be the stars of the future in this league, to really wet their feet in the playoffs, and that's why they're trying to push to get this spot, because obviously it's not about participation trophies.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. And remember, even last year when I was talking about the Liberty, they've been building for about 3 seasons now. So they are at a point where they can really continue to build so that they can get to the level where they not just make the playoffs, but then they make a good run for the championship with the young guys that they've got with Sabrina and the potential Rookie of the Year right now, right? And so I think that they're in the best position to just say to everybody, hey, watch out for us. We'll be back in this position. And yes, Sabrina is marked as somebody who possibly will be the face of the franchise in the next couple of years. So why not bring up your team to every playoff possibility every season until you get to a place where you win? I see New York as a building team. I almost used the football reference with Arsenal, but I'm not even gonna go there because anyway.
Best not to do that.
Yeah, it's best not to do that. But I do think that they're in a position where they can start having people look at them and not really dog them for where they are. They've got Sabrina, they've got new people on their team. They just are building proper. And I see them running for playoffs every single season moving forward.
Right now, they're Golden State. Was it Mike Brown that used to coach them?
Yeah.
When they were there but not there. That's literally that team right now.
Yeah.
Great comparison. Great comparison. I think to round off the show, then let's talk about the Dallas Wings, who they look to be the team that will clinch that seventh seed and really just try and make a nuisance of themselves. And they're an interesting one when it comes to the playoffs, because when you think about just what they could do and with their run, they're going to play the Atlanta Dream, they've got the Connecticut Sun, the Liberty, the Aces, and the Sparks. There's some really interesting games within that mix. Kaunda, when I look at that, I think, okay, fine, you're going to play a couple of the top teams just to gauge how far off from them you might be when you get into the playoffs. But then also you've got a chance to solidify your spot in the seeding when you play against guys who are also battling against you. Do you think the Wings could be a kind of team that could shock one or two players, one or two teams, maybe in the single elimination games?
I think they've got the potential to. I think we've discussed a little bit about the fact that Arike Ogumbawale hasn't been the Arike that was there last season. And, her being sort of like the de facto young leader hasn't really, stepped up to the plate as much as she did last season. But then again, looking at the talent they have on the squad and the fact that she can also step up even further than she has, because she's got that potential. They could shock somebody. I have a lot of hope in the Dallas Wings. This is a great team. They play with great pace. They look fearful. I don't see any fear in their eyes, regardless of who they're playing. They don't look phased. So that's the kind of squad you can expect to, upset a big team at a crucial time, like during the playoffs.
Who is the potential shock factor when it comes to the Wings? When, like in real life, when you look at the big teams that they may possibly shock, in your words?
Look, I don't see them shocking the Connecticut Sun, because I'm scared of those ladies. They should be respected. But the Dallas Wings could definitely shock a Lynx. They could shock a Mercury. I'm telling
You
you.
think so?
Yeah.
Or this, I think
Oh,
maybe the
Kaunda.
Sky. I don't know about the Mercury because of just their form at present, but maybe somebody like the Chicago Sky, who haven't necessarily had the best season. They've had a good run of games recently, but the Sky just also haven't quite been there. And I absolutely love them because, you know, like Kalia Copper is one of my favorites in the dub at the moment, and then Ali Quigley. But I do think, though, that when you look at the Wings, I don't see them being like a the Lynx even. I don't think they'll be a team who will take their eyes off the ball when it comes to the Wings. But
Look,
Lee,
we're talking
about
the word shock means unexpected. That's why I put those teams there.
I mean,
when you say shock, shocks are not obvious. It's not like, like, okay, they're
playing with electricity, obvious.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not those kind of shocks. That's why I put the Lynx and the Mercury. And I know you're like, do they have anybody who could, take Brittany Griner out of a game? I don't think so, but shocks do happen. You never know, and I don't want to talk about what leads to shocks. Like, I hate that I word. Let's move on.
Yeah, stuff happens. I do agree with you, Lee. Final words here on the Wings. Do you think that they could be a team that people need to really watch out for come playoff time?
Such as Savali can start planning what she's going to do for the rest of her holidays. Maybe start texting her trainer. Maybe think about playing Europe, because isn't women's Euro basket is about to start.
Yeah.
Maybe start training for that. Visit her family in Germany. Do a
So
little
you
Africa
think
trip
that's
if she
it?
wants to.
Underline, season underlined. We're going to have to leave it there. I mean, with words like that, those are fighting words. Thank you, everybody. It's been another great show.
Satu, don't come for me. I was just playing.
Satu is definitely going to come for you. She's only 5'3".
Listen, Lee, I must tell you, next time you're going to the US, after what you said about the Liberty, you don't go through JFK. Use Atlanta. And I was like,
wait, what's that about the Liberty?
Watch the podcast. You see, I was like,
rewatch the show.
Rewatch the show. You will see, I was like, okay, she ain't going to JFK International anytime soon.
Look, Liberty fans might be all
that's
up in
Lee.
that business.
Oh, please, Liberty, listen, camera, which camera, that camera. Bring all your burners.
We're going to leave it right there. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, tell your friends about WNBA Courtside. This is one of the best WNBA shows on the internet. And you got to watch it every week. So thank you, everybody, and keep watching.